Hi, I'm Palmy. Welcome back to my channel, the best place for your Daz Studio needs. Now, if you're a beginner like me and you want to learn more about Daz Studio, then this is a channel for you. In today's video, we'll be looking at how we can create wounds and cuts in Daz Studio for our figures. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so here we are in Daz Studio and we're going to be creating our first scar, wound, or a cut wound, or some sort of wound that you would possibly get in some sort of a fight scene or something, or if somebody was to cut you with a knife or whatever, you cut yourself, it would look something like that. So the first thing we need to do, we've got our figure here and we need to get our maps. So just like we did with the Mr. Skin tutorial, we need to find the location of the maps for our particular figure. So this figure here is the AI one, so I need to click on here in the scene tab, and then I click use my surfaces button here, my tool, and then I click on the face. There we go. And then I need to go to surfaces here, click on that, editor, and then I need to go down the surfaces here, which is already collapsed, expanded rather, sorry, it's already expanded, and face, there it is. And then we need to go to the base color. This is our the base color, which is the original map, which is everything is based upon, which is the normal map is based on, which the bump map is based on, which is the specular map is based on. Okay, so we click on that, and then we go to browse here. Click on browse, and that will take us to the directory where the actual maps are. So you can see here, it's in public documents, my Daz 3D library, runtime, textures. Muso is the vendor, and the name of the character is AI. So I want to click on that, I want to copy that across. So right click, copy. Okay, I'm going to leave that now. And then I'm going to go into Photoshop. So I'm going to go into Photoshop. And I'm going to do File, Open. I'm going to right click and I'm going to paste here and do Open. So that's going to take me straight to that directory. And then obviously I'm going to import the following maps, which is the face. So I need to go down and find the face, and the best thing to do is to do by name, so it's easy to find. There we go. So I want AI face, control, I want AI diffuse, which is the color, which is the base color map, and the specular, I want that as well. Actually, when I need the bump, but I'll include it anyway. So those are the three I need. Open. And then obviously control click these as well, because I want all these maps here, and then do open all three images. Okay, and the best thing I found to do is to put them all into one file basically. So I would right click, duplicate layer, and put that into the AI diffuse JPEG here. And then I would do the same with the bump, right click, duplicate layer, and put that into the AI diffuse as well. And then we can get rid of the specular, we can get rid of the bump. No, I don't want to save it. And no, we don't want to save it. So make sure you don't save over the original maps. So this very, very careful not to save over it, because obviously once you do that, then that will be the original maps for that character all the time. So be very careful to not save over it. So no, I don't want to save over it. And as you can see, we've got all our maps here as well here. So this is everything here, which is great. So that's how you want to do it. And then what you want to do now is save it as PSD. So file, save as, and then give it a name. I'll just call it, and you don't want to save it in the same folder. Create a texture folder, which I've already done here, like we did in the Mr. Skin tutorial, which is custom textures here. And then I'm going to call it AI diffuse 2 because I've already got one AI diffuse. So I'm going to use save there. That's saved. So any changes I make now won't be made to those maps or anything. The original maps were all good to go. So I'm going to leave that one there for now. Actually, we'll use that one because I've got another one here that I already used. We'll go back to use one. This is fine. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is create a new layer. And we're going to add our scar wound on this layer. So that's why we create a new layer. So what we need to do first is I've actually got you some brushes, some free brushes I've found. There will be a link in the description box below for that as well. So download those free brushes. Some of them are pretty good, some of them are okay. What I normally use is I'll show you what I normally use. Where are we going? Here we're going. The brush, there we go. So the one that I normally use is, if it's here, see if we can find it. There's so many, it's ridiculous. So many brushes in Photoshop, it's ridiculous. Sometimes you can't find it. Where is it gone? Okay, so these are the ones, scar brushes. These are the ones that are free. So this one has scar brushes here, and the scar brush is 13. I think there's 13 of them. So there's different variations. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. So just have a go with those as well. The one I normally use is War Elements here, which is Ron's War Elements. I'll show you. There it is, this one here. So you can see what it looks like when I put it on there. That's the Ron's War Elements. I'm not going to use that one today because I want to show you what the other ones look like. So it's up to you if you want to go buy that Ron's War Elements. That's in the Daz 3D shop if you want to go buy it. You don't have to if you don't want to, which is why I'm going to show you how to do it without the War Elements. We don't really need to use that. So let's go back to the scar. And the one I've been using quite recently is number 5 is pretty good actually. We'll start with number 5 and we'll have something like, we'll have that, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to just resize it. I'm going to use my keys to resize it. I don't want it that big. Okay, now before I put it across the nose, I'm going to put it across the nose. You can put it wherever you want. You can have it here on the cheek, on the mouth. You can have it here anywhere you want. So I'm just putting it across the nose, that's fine. Before we do that, actually make sure that your primary color here, this one here, is a kind of darkish red color, your foreground color. So you want it somewhere here. You can use this value if you want. This is the exact value I'm using, so you can use this 560,000. This is the exact value of this color that I'm using, so you can use that as well. Just make sure that is your primary color, your foreground color rather. And I'm going to put it right here. So I'm going to click here and let's see how that looks. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. So what we need to do now is, what I would normally do now is I would use the styles that comes with the War Elements. So when I go to my styles, these are all the styles I have. So when as soon as I click on them, it automatically applies the styles. So when I start clicking on them, it starts to apply the styles. And then I would choose the one that's best. Now some of you, obviously you get this with the Ron's War Elements download from Daz 3D. Now obviously, since most of you probably don't have it, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to show you. I'm going to do it with that. We're going to do it without the actual effects. So I'm going to actually. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through these and actually go through the effects with you. So we're going to go through each one. I'm going to show you how to do it individually, so you can copy the effects. So even if you don't have this, once you understand how this works, these effects here, the styles rather, then you will have a better idea how to create your own styles and use them. So not one style here that we've done here will work with all the other scars. You have to choose individual styles for the scars basically. So one setting here won't work for all the scars. So you have to, so as soon as you realize how this work, these styles work, then you can really do your own styles to make it match any scar you've got. So I'm just going to zoom in here a bit so we can see a bit more better. There we go. Great. So let's go into these styles, these effects that have been added on. So let's start with the easiest one, which is color overlay. So with color overlay, when you add that, I'll show you how to add it actually. You just go to FX here and then you would choose color overlay and then you would add it on basically. Okay. So these styles here are all these FX properties here. That's all they are. They've just been, the ones that are ticked are the ones that we're using. That's all they are. Okay. So that's how you would apply it to that layer. So let's go to color overlay, and the color overlay is basically straightforward. Is you want red, and the red color is you want blend mode normal and you want red, and opacity needs to be 100, and then the actual color that they're using here with this is this color here, is this number here. So D2 and then quadruple 0. That's the exact color if you want to put it in, so you can have that there. Okay, and the next one is inner shadow. So the inner shadow, when you create the inner shadow, you want the blend mode to be multiply and you want it to be black. And the opacity, we're going to play around the opacity in a bit. And the distance and the size, we're going to play with that right now as well. So you'll need to modify these depending on what this scar looks like, this actual brush does. So every brush is different, so you'll need to change these settings accordingly. So let's go through and have a look at this inner shadow. How can we make this better? So let's have a look at the opacity. How is that? So if I increase the opacity, it gets darker or black. I don't really want black. I want reddish, but I don't want too red. So maybe 45, what it was originally at is fine. So that's cool. Happy with that. Let's have a look at the angle now. So the angle, we're going to use global light obviously, and the angle will change how this looks. So as I move it, you'll see it change. The direction of the light is changing. So just like in Daz Studio, when the direction of light changes, the actual way the figure looks will change because the lighting effects and the shadows fall in different areas. This is doing the exact same thing. So we're moving our angle, we're saying, right, how do we want it? So how do I want it? What looks, you know, pretty realistic. So something like that looks pretty good. So, you know, that looks pretty good. Like there's a cut going through. You can see there's an edge there. There's an edge there. So it looks like there's a cut going through, which looks pretty good. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to keep that. So let's play with the distance now in the inner shadow. Right, so let's have a look at the distance. It's not doing much. So that property is not doing much, which is fine. The size, let's have a look at the size. So what does the size do? Size is not doing much as well. We can leave the size as it is. So we're happy with that setting, inner shadow, great. So then we go to the bevel and emboss, click on that. So this one, the settings you want for bevel and emboss are style, inner bevel, and technique smooth, okay? Now the depth we can play around with, so let's have a look at the depth. What happens when we do the depth? You can see that it looks like the cut gets bigger and smaller. So the depth could be the cut, kind of like the cut, whether it's bigger or smaller. I don't want it that big. You may want it that big. I prefer something like this. Looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Now the direction, what direction? So the direction is down of the inner bevel. What if we do up? What does that look like? So you can see now it's kind of changed to the point where it doesn't look like, it looks like it's bulging up. Like the skin's coming up here and the skin's coming up there, and this is kind of going up and it's kind of like above a layer, so to speak, like it's higher up on the skin. So let's go back to down. That looks more like a different kind of cut. So you can see the different kind of cuts you can get. So this one looks like it's raised a bit. And even with the normal map, when we use the normal map later on, when we make the normal map, it will still give you that raised effect. So it depends on what you're looking for. Do you want this to be raised up, or do you want this to be receding in like this? I don't know. Let's have a look at this. So to me, I like the down look because it looks like there's actual cut there going into there, like you have like a slice in the skin. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's move on to the next setting, which is the size. What does that do? So the size, it looks like it's the size of the inner bevel. So we probably want to leave that as it is, as 5. And the soften just softens the edges. So really we could leave that at 0 as well. The shading angle, we could change that as well. So if you wanted to change it, you could. So with that, we would change the light source. So as you can see, it would start changing just like it did with the inner shadow. When we changed the actual angle, we changed the angle of the inner bevel. So you can see that it's changing the properties of that. And I actually like that where it was before. So I'm going to put it back to roughly where it was. It doesn't have to be exactly where it was, but roughly where it was is fine. Okay, and now the highlight mode. Now this bit here, what I found the best thing to do for this, so the highlight mode, you want screen as your blend mode, and you don't want it white. What you want is the skin color of the actual figure. So you click on there and you want to sample the skin color of the figure. So somewhere around about here is fine. So okay, so whatever the skin color of your figure is, you want to just sample that. Okay, something relating roughly to it. So that's fine, okay. And the same we want to do with the shadow mode. We want multiply as the blend mode, but we want the color of the shadow to be the same as the color of the skin. So roughly the skin, doesn't have to be exactly. And now we can play around with the opacity values. So with the screen, let's have a look. As you can see with the screen, you can see the cut gets bigger and smaller. So I want it smaller. So probably something like 95, 94 is fine. And let's have a look at the shadow mode. What does that do? So it doesn't do much in terms of the shadow. So we're okay with that. Maybe let's go back to black and see what that looks like. No, you can see the shadow mode, it's got this black bit there. I don't want that also. I'm going to sample the skin color again. I'm going to go with that. And the multiply mode is fine. So there we go. So an additional thing which we can add, it probably doesn't need adding to this brush, is if you have a look around here, normally when you get like a cut or a wound, you get this kind of like scarring around the edges. You can see a bit of scarring here already. So one thing I have found to add a bit of extra to the scarring is to add like a glow. So if you click on the FX here and we do like a outer glow to it, and with the outer glow what we want is, with the outer glow I want blend mode normal. I want the color of the lips, so I want to sample the color of the lips. Okay, so whatever figure you have, you want to sample the color of the lips. Use it as a reference point, so somewhere around here is fine, doesn't have to be exactly perfect. And that will give you like the scarring on the edges, kind of like a bit more darker color than the skin, because obviously our lips are a bit more darker than our actual skin color, so that will give you that scarring effect on the edge there. So click OK to that. So now we're going to play with the settings here. Opacity, let's have a look. So obviously the more I do it, the more scarring I get, and the less I do, the less scarring I get. So maybe something like that, doesn't look too bad, 35, 34. And then you can play with the technique, which you want softer, and then you can play with the spread. So spread will increase like the spread of it, the scarring, so to speak. So do you want a lot of scarring or do you want some scarring? Okay, and then the size of the scarring. Do you want a lot of scarring? So you can see like the scarring is kind of going a bit more there, or you want less. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. And then you got the range as well. You can play with the range. So if you decrease the range, it gets a lot bigger. You can see like it's getting a bit too big there. That doesn't look very good. So I think the original value 50 is actually pretty good. So that's pretty good there. That looks pretty realistic. Happy with that. So there we go. That's how we create our like FX styles without using these modes here. So this is how you would create it. If you don't want to purchase the Ron's War styles and have those layer styles, that's fine as well. So I'm just trying to show you alternative ways on how you can do it, because I know not everybody wants to go buy these things, and that's fine. But I still want to show you the actual approach to it. So we click OK. So we click OK. That's really good. Happy with that. Now we need to save the file. So we go to File, Save As. And I'm going to save my custom textures. And I'm going to save it as a JPEG. It's a JPEG and AI diffuse 2. And I'm just going to call it color map. Sorry. Base color map. So BCM 1. Save. That's going to save, and just these settings, leave them as they are. You want quality, the highest quality obviously you want, because it's the face. You want the highest quality. So click OK. So that's done. That's brilliant. So we've done that now. What we can do now is, what I want to do is create a normal map. I don't want to create a bump map, because I feel like the bump maps, I feel the normal map's a lot better than a bump map. So what I found is, some of you that don't use Photoshop and don't have Photoshop and don't have this option here, for filter, 3D and generate normal map. If you don't have that, I think GIMP has it now as well. But if you don't want to use that, if you don't have GIMP and if you don't have Photoshop, I found a website for you. And the link in the description for this website will be in the description box as well. It's called Normal Map Online. And then all we need to do now is I need to click on this area here. And I need to go find my files. So I need to go find my base color file that we just created. So I'm going to go to my custom textures folder. There it is, the one we just created there. And I click open. There it is, it's uploaded. There we go. So that's the one we just created. What I want is a normal map. So I want to click on normal here. Okay, there's our normal map. So you can play around with these settings here. The strength of it, the level, the blur, the sharpness. I normally leave that as it is, because we can always change those settings inside Daz Studio in terms of how much we want of the how much level we want of the normal map. So I'm not concerned about these settings, which is fine. And then all you would do is press download, and then this will download to wherever you normally get your files downloaded. So mine's going to download to my downloads folder, and I'm going to just cut this. I'm going to copy it across to my textures folder. I'm going to paste it, and I've already got one called normal map. I'm just going to replace it. It's fine. That's why it's asking me to replace it. Okay, so I've got my normal map, and I've got my base color map, which is great. Now the next thing I want is, now that's it, we're done with this really. We don't want to create a displacement. We don't really need it, and we don't need to create specular, because if you have a look at the specular map here, this is actually incorrect specular. So if you have a look at the specular here compared to the specular, see it's white here, and if you have a look at the actual specular map here, which is this one here, you can see it's different. So I wouldn't use this to create a specular map. Use a specular map that's already given to you as part of the figure. the figures texture map. So this is it. We're done with this website. So this is a great website if you want to create normal maps, and if you want to create a displacement as well, you can use it as well. But this is really cool. So if you don't have Photoshop and if you don't have GIMP, you can still at least create normal maps. There you go. So let's minimize that now. I'm just going to go back to Photoshop. So let's create our specular map. So the first thing I need to do is what I'm going to do is just make a copy of this. So Control J, I want to make a copy of this. And then I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to rasterize the layer style. So now it's got the layer styles are a part of this layer. And I need to select actually the displacement, the specular map. And we need to desaturate this. So I need to go to Image, and I need to go to Adjustments and Desaturate, which means just turn it into black and white. Desaturate means just get rid of the color. That's all it means. So we got rid of the color, great. And now what I want to do is change the actual where I want the shininess. If I want any shininess at all. So when the light hits it, when the light hits this, when the light hits the scar, how much of the light will shine off of it basically. So as you can see here, you can see like there's gradients here. So when, if you have a look at the specular map, so when the light shines on it, this is why you get those shiny bits on the lips. You can see here the gradient of white going to black to grey. So here you would see you get shininess here as well when the light goes on. So you can see the different areas of the skin where the light will shine, and we get that reflection, that glossy reflection. Okay, so I need to change the contrast. So I'm going to go to my adjustment layers here, and I'm going to brightness contrast, and I don't want the brightness of the contrast to affect everything. I just want it to affect this layer, so I'm going to clip it. The clipping mask means it will only affect the layer below it. So for this, what we need to do for this is our contrast we want high, so pretty high, and then we want to lower our brightness. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get something like similar to kind of like the eyebrow here, the eyes here. So that kind of color, so to speak, this kind of color here. So not exactly that, obviously we're not going to get exactly it, but this is what we're kind of aiming for, this kind of ratio of brightness to contrast. So I don't want it too bright, something like this is okay. Maybe I want a bit of shininess, I don't know. So this is something you might have to play around with to get the actual correct specular. Obviously we can always go into Daz Studio and change the settings because we know how to do that now. You should know how to do that right now because I went through the settings through one of the tutorials that I did. I can't remember which one it was. I'll put the link up here when I find it in the top right. That discusses the glossiness and everything, and how you can change that. So that's what we're trying to get. So this is what we're trying to get. So we don't want it super bright because obviously when you get a cut, it's not the shininess doesn't come off. It doesn't bounce off it and go everywhere. It's not like super bright. So we want something like this. That looks pretty good. So let's save this as well. So file, save as a JPEG, and we'll save it as spec map 1. Save and save. So as you can see, we're doing a lot of the work outside of Daz Studio in different programs, and that's what happens at advanced levels. You probably spend more of your time outside of Daz Studio than you do inside, because you need to get all the textures prepared. When you start, creating your own models and things, you'll have to get your textures prepared. You have to get everything prepared, and then you go into Daz Studio and start putting the textures in. And then sometimes you find the textures don't look great. You have to go back into Photoshop or whatever photo editing software you use and go back and forth basically. So that's what you'll be doing a lot when you get really advanced, and you don't really end up spending too much time in Daz Studio. So we've got all our maps. We're really happy with that. Let's go back into Daz Studio, which is great. So all we need to do now is apply our maps to our face surface, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to click on the base color, and I'm going to go to browse, and I need to go to my textures folder. So custom textures, and the first one I created, BCM1, and you'll see the scar come up there as well. Great. So wherever the maps are, we just need to replace them. So this translucency one, I need to replace this one as well. So it should be in the list here now somewhere. It should be in the list. It's not in the list, no problem. Browse. There it is. Excellent, so replace that. And the dual lobe specular, so we created our specular map, so we're going to need to replace that as well. So browse, here's our specular map, and go down here. We're not going to replace the base one, we're going to leave the base as it is, and we're going to apply our normal map that we created. So I'm going to go to here, go to browse, go to normal map, somewhere here. There it is. Apply the normal map, excellent. And let's have a look down. That's it, that's all the maps. So let's do iRay test. Let's have a look at the iRay preview and see what it looks like. Let me just unhighlight that. So when I put my mouse over, nope, didn't work. Okay. So let's turn this around. It's not a very good camera view. Okay, so that's how it looks there. So the lighting's not very good. Let's change the lighting because the lighting is not very good. I need to rotate it actually. So actually what I need to do is just rotate the lighting. I think it was 333 for this one here. Let's make it a bit more brighter. I think that might be the issue. Okay, so there we go. So as you can see the cut there now on the actual screen. Let me just choose this option here. So when I move my mouse over, it doesn't go all yellow and highlighted, so you can see. So we can see it here, right here. So you can see it's not too bad. It could probably look better. So maybe the actual normal map, if we go to normal map, I think the setting's too low on it. So normal map, the setting is 0.25. Let's put it on the default setting, which is normally 1, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that's 1. So you can see like there's some depth to the cut there and everything. That looks pretty good as well. And it wraps around the nose as it should. A bonus tip, what we can do is we can add a displacement map, which means it will bend the mesh a bit around the specific area, and then it will make it look a bit more realistic. It's very, very subtle, but you can add it, and we'll do it now. I don't think you'll be able to see the difference, but we can have a go. So let's go down to the displacement strength. And with the displacement strength, what we can use is we can use a specular map that we created. So we can use a specular map, which is this one here. Okay. And the setting I would use is very, very low setting. You want like 0.2 or 0.3. You don't want to go that high. If you go too high, something like 1, you'll see it starts to deform the skin, the mesh too much. You'll see the sea start to deform here too much, and here and here. And even though this looks very realistic, it's too much, it's deformed too much because of the displacement strength. So we want to go for very low values. 0.2 is pretty good. And the sub D is how much smoothing it does. So if I put the sub D to 0, which is the normal setting, you can see that that actually that doesn't look too bad. The sub D, all the sub D does is just makes it more smoother. So there's some displacement here and there. So this is why we choose sub D 2 or 3. I went 3 because my system can handle it. So 2 is okay. We can do 2. So you can see now it's smoothing here. The sub D's been smooth here as well a bit, and there. So this actually looks pretty good. So you can add displacement strength if you want to. It's not a must. In the actual thumbnail that I created for this tutorial, I didn't add a displacement strength for it. So you don't have to if you don't want to. Now at the moment, the reason why you can see these bumps here is this is the normal map here. So I think the normal map's far too high. So I'm thinking maybe 0.5 is enough to see. As you can see, we can adjust. So even with the settings we used in this here, the original settings for the normal map, they're pretty high, I think. We can still go to Daz Studio and we can always change these. So there you go, it's gone a bit better now. And the cut still looks great to me. Nothing wrong with that cut whatsoever. Now another thing that obviously changes the way the cut looks is the lighting. So let me just remove some of this lighting that I've done, the additional lighting. So let me get rid of vignetting that I put on, the crush blacks, the saturation, and even the white point. Let's put the white point, let's put everything back to default. So you can see as soon as you start to go back to default, the default settings, that is the default setting, it is. And we take off the bloom as well. I'm going to go back right to the default settings. So we're using the actual dome here. The dome is the only, dome only is the only lighting. There we go. So as I move this around, actually if I do it with the sun sky, it'll be quicker so you can see the difference. If I do sun sky. So as I start moving this dome around, you'll see this affects the way the actual cut looks. So as you can see, when the lighting is directly right in the face here, it affects the way the cut looks. So you got to take into consideration, you could have the best cut in the world, the best map in the world, the best texture maps, or the best brushes in the world. It doesn't matter. But if your lighting is not good enough, this will look rubbish. As you can see, it looks really bad here because the lighting is straight on. So this affects how it looks as well. So you've got to take that into consideration when you're doing things like this. It's all well and good adding the cuts and everything and they look realistic, but if the lighting's not up to par, it doesn't matter. It just looks absolutely rubbish. So this is what you need to be very careful with. The lighting adds to the cut. So see now that I've put some shading here, see how it adds to the cut? These are the things you got to take into consideration as well. So even if you put the cut here on the cheek here, or on the arms or anywhere on the torso, if your lighting's not up to par, it doesn't matter. The cut will look absolutely rubbish. You could have the best cut in the world, the best brushes in the world, but if you don't use it correctly, then if you don't use the lighting to enhance it, there's no point. So you really got to consider that as well. So there you have it. That's how you can create cuts and wounds in Daz Studio for our figures and make them stand out as well. Those of you that have Photoshop, make sure to download the free brushes. Link in the description box down below for that as well. And those of you that don't have Photoshop, I have you covered, so don't worry about that. I've created 24 PNG files, that's right, 24 PNG files for you to use in any photo editing software as well. So link in the description box down below for that as well. And if you found value in this information, if you found this video valuable, then hit that like button as well. And don't forget to leave a comment down below as well. Hit that subscribe button as well. And don't forget to hit that notification bell as well so you don't miss out on any more great videos like these. And I'll see you in next week's video.